Another Lubbock man will serve more than 20 years in prison after he admitted to molesting 2 children. Anthony Barbosa pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child this morning. Court records show he attacked 1 child in October of 2020 and another one in July of 2021. Judge Freitag accepted his deal, which includes 25 years of prison time. He's giving Barbosa a little less than 3 years of jail credit for time served. After his sentencing, a victim told the court they've spent the last few years terrified about what Barbosa did to them and will be able to sleep better at night knowing he will stay locked up.